Evening everyone, it's Ian from DIY Home and Gardening. So tonight got a little bit of peace and quiet, and so I thought I'd make a start on preparing, chili peppers for storage. So if I turn the camera around, we can have a little look as to how I do it and why. Okay, so this is what I've done so far. It's a few of the different chili peppers, and really just using drying rack, probably to my wife's annoyance, to dry out the chilies, prevent them from going rotten. So here is Gusto Purple, Vampire, Peruvian Lemon Drop, Purple Tiger, Jalapeno Tiger. What we've got there, some Holy Peak. And so really, at the moment, let's say that some are ripe, well most of them are ripe, that's definitely ripe. These are going from the purple through to the red, same with those, and then these are changing from the green through to the orange and to red for ripening. Now these chilies were picked about 2 weeks ago. We're currently 2nd of November. So they're picked about 2 weeks ago, possibly 3 weeks ago now. And for the most part, they just sat in a cardboard box, each individual varieties in an envelope in the cardboard box. And really just to give me a bit of time to get round to preparing them and sorting out varieties for keeping for seed for next year, as well as for preparing for slightly longer term storage. Now, if we go over here and have a look. So I've just finished doing these ones. These are Hankoi Supernovas, and what I've done with this string is I've gone with the ones that are clearly green and not ripe up through to the red ones. And this particular variety, for some reason, the caterpillars seem to like it more so than the others. And by sorting each chili out, you can then start to have a look as to if there's any damage. So there was caterpillar within the top calyx, that's this bit, and a little bit of slug damage. So whilst these are damaged chilies and I'm not going to string those for storage, they're actually good enough for using for cooking with or for saving the seed from. So that's another one, so strung up, and that can just be allowed to dry. So why do that? Well, if you have a look at that one there, where it's been in the envelope, in close proximity to the others, you can see it's slightly gone a little bit mouldy, but that will recover. If you don't give them sufficient air, then the chilies will rot. Then in turn, that means they won't keep. By stringing them up, then you can do as I've done there. You can allow them to dry naturally within the air, as long as it's a warm environment. No good having chilies hanging in a damp atmosphere, such as in a shed or a garage. So it's got to be warm and dry conditions. And once they're dry, as in starting to shrivel and dry, well, we haven't got any that are dry enough, but they go wrinkly, and at that point you can store them without any issues, any worries of further rotting. As a different approach, you can always put them into the fridge from fresh, or put them into a dehydrator. So back to this. Essentially, we're going to finish up stringing up, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so yeah, it kind of looks like we're in an interview, doesn't it? But thought it's easier to have a look like this. So these ones are the last variety I've got that I'm going to be stringing up, and it's a variety called Peter Pepper Chili Willy, probably for obvious reasons. And they are to string up and dry and, well, keep for use. When they're nice and red like that, you can also use them for seed collection, which kind of brings me back to these. You know, when I was saying that because they've got damage, they're no good for storage because they continue to rot or fail as a keeping product. You can already see that one's starting to perish. But if you want to cook with the undamaged part, that's fine. Likewise, if you want to use the seed for sowing for next year, that seed will also be viable. Just use the normal method for checking whether the seed's viable. I'll add a link onto the video so you can see how to do that. We'll just pop those away. Now, really simple, and you don't have to be good at sewing to do this. I'm not, clearly. So all I tend to use is some thick cotton, which we tend to have laying around in my wife's stuff. Just cut a length off. Nothing too difficult with that. Probably this is the most difficult part, to be honest, which is doing a decent knot. So what I tend to do is just sort of do a double knot, if you like, which creates something a little bit larger than you would get by a singular knot. And the reason we do that is just because if you've got a bigger knot in the end, it's not going to pull straight through the chili when you're doing it. I've got a wideish needle, just get that through. The only reason I've got a wideish needle is because that was the only one to hand. Now, saying about doing the knot, possibly getting the string through the eye is the hardest bit. Okay, so we got our string attached to the needle, and what I tend to do is almost look at your chilies as a bit of a sizing thing. Start with the larger ones because they're going to put more weight onto the base of it and it'll just help anchor it in place. And what you're looking to do, you can either go through the stem there, or what I tend to do is go closer to the top of the chili, so in a slightly wider bit of the head, cap, calyx, pull it through, and when you're getting close to that knotted piece, just lightly, so it's just touching there. So that's your first one done, and then you can then go through and carry on with the next one. So again, we just get it low down, making sure that you're going through the center of that piece, so you're getting good support from for the string and it's not going to just tear out. And then you've got your second, and we'll just basically build it up like that. So this one, as I say, there's not many chilies, so it won't take very long, and it just depends how you do them. So this particular variety, these are all shown as ripened ones, so that's fine, no problems with those. You know you're not going to have any issues in terms of further rotting. That's the dog just starting to bark. It's a bit stormy here, so hence I'm doing this video as opposed to being up in the allotment. Now, we're now getting down to the slightly smaller ones. Again, exactly the same, so going through, and by going with the smaller ones, it just makes it a little bit easier in terms of how they stack onto each other. If you've got a little stub, then you might need to go a little bit lower, like so. So we're through those. And as you're going, just have a little check in case you've got any damage. So we got those, they're finished. I did have a look earlier, but I don't think I've got the label for this one. But what I tend to do is, I'll show you in a sec. We got them like that. On the last one, I then go through, going through the Chilli once, and then we go through the other side. So you're sort of making a cross through the top of the calyx, pulling that gently, trying not to get tangled in the other chilies, which always happens when you lose concentration. Okay, so we've done a double knot in that last one, and that just stops them from sliding up the other way. If you happen to tip it over, they can't go anywhere. And then usually when I've got the label, then I'll just feed the label on. So like this one, I use labels, they're plastic labels, but they are good solid ones, so they're renewable or recyclable. And most labels have a hole in. If they don't have a hole in, then you can just use a sharp pair of scissors or a little drill to put a hole in, or even a hole punch, and then feed your string through it. And that just means that you can keep your labels with the chili, so that if you are waiting for, again, we'll pull this, if you are waiting for some of these ones to ripen to allow you to harvest seed for saving your own seed, then you know what the variety actually is that you want. Likewise, it takes away the whole concept of Russian roulette. You know, if you've got these hanging up and you're planning to make a bolognese or something, whip off a couple of chilies, and then it's like, oh Christ, you know, what variety have I picked? How hot's the chili going to be? Is a bolognese going to be, you know, crazy hot or too mild? By having that label there, that takes the guesswork out. And believe me, we have made a few relishes with mixed bags of chilies in the past, where you end up trying to eat it and you literally can't because it just burns your lips. So that's the reasoning for that. On this one, back to this, we've finished. Take the needle off, pop it back into your cotton, safekeeping, and we'll just go and tie these off to let them hang and dry. Hung this one up, just got these last ones to go. So all I tend to do, nothing too technical, save a bit of work and make it easy, is wrap the string round or cotton rounds twice, and that just means it's not going to slip. Put your finger on the top there, and then you can just use your fingers to do a quick knot. He says, as always, catch a chili in it, pull it in, job done, and they can hang there. And basically we'll just leave these to dry out over the course of the next 2 to 3 weeks. Okay, so you can see we've got the 6 different types there. So like I said, they can just stay there for the next 2 or 3 weeks, dry out. Alternatively, if you don't want to have them all hanging up, then you could put them in a dehydrator if you happen to have one, or in a low temperature oven to help dry them out. But generally speaking, these sorts of smaller chilies I find dry pretty quickly this time of year, because you've got a bit of heating on. Had we had a better summer, then they could have stayed outside and dried that way. But anyway, slight to digress. Different type of chili, so we'll just head over to here. Now these are mushroom red, and let's get those out. Because of their shape, They can be a little bit awkward if you want to try and string them together, because as you can see, they don't really fit. So, you know, you can do a string, but what you have to do is allow a bit of a gap between each one so that they kind of sit running up. Much easier, to be honest, is to just stick them into a cardboard box, let them dry out that way, or if you've got a dehydrator or again an oven, cut them through the middles, lay them so it's sort of open heart facing upwards, and they can dry out slowly that way. But yeah, it just depends what you got to hand, what you want to do, what you're using for. I mean, it might well be that actually this amount of chili you use up very quickly, and say for me, I'll be keeping one or two of each of these chilies for harvesting seed from, and then the rest will be cooked with. Yeah, and like I said at the beginning as well, actually, alternative to having to worry about any of this drying is that you could just take the caps off these, cut them and freeze them straight away. And then that way, just defrost them as and when you want to use them for curry or whatever. And that's it. Simple. Like I just said, you know, video done. It's quite straightforward, nothing too technical. So the hardest bit is probably putting the cotton through the eye of the needle, or indeed tying some knots. But you know, video nice and simple, how to dry out your chilies, how to essentially store them for your later use. Yeah, your three options really: tying them like so, allow them to dry out for a few weeks, cut them and dehydrate them if you've got a dehydrator or use of a oven, or your third option, which is to put them straight into the freezer and then defrost and use them at a later date. And that's it. Quite simple, but something unfortunately with chilies that gets overlooked, and a lot of people tend to end up harvesting a lot of product and wasting a lot of product because they don't allow them to dry sufficiently. And chili peppers, like a lot of things, high water content, especially in this top piece where you got the stem formation, and ultimately that rots far quicker than the actual chili does, and that leads to the waste of fruit. So get your prep done quickly, get your storage done quickly, save your fruit, and you've got, yeah, you're self-sufficient basically until, well, probably until harvest next year. So video done. If you like the video, then fantastic. Please subscribe to the channel. Love having more people coming on board. If you've got questions about this video or, well, indeed other videos, and I say I'll put the link on them, how to save your seed as well. So if you've got any questions, then please send them over to me. I'll do my very best to answer them for you. And, you know, make sure you hit the reminder button so you don't miss out on any future videos I'm doing. There's quite a few, well, will be coming, different things. And I do say it, but it's so true. Enjoy what you're doing, have fun, and try experimenting, try doing some different things. You know, and that also includes experimenting how to store your own vegetables, because we do all the hard bit, which is growing the veg, and then actually all of that hard work can be undone by the product spoiling and being an absolute waste of our time. So learn the basics on the growing, learn the basics on how to look after and store your fruit and vegetables, and then you're loving it. So till next time, bye for now.